Boom, we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. There's been some time that has officially passed from Iowa's very difficult loss to the Minnesota Golden Gophers. And I can only speak for myself. By the way, guys, almost forgot. This, of course, is the Big Ten Whip Around show. The past couple of weeks, I've been able to drop it the weekend of. I wanted to have a little bit more time to think about the Iowa Hawkeye game before going live again. So we will be discussing the Big Ten and the top 25. So this is the Big Ten Whip Around show plus top 25 scores. But by the way, guys, like, comment, share, subscribe. I have a few thoughts that I want to share from the Iowa game. Not all of them directly related to the game. So here are some unrelated thoughts, okay? I, as a creator, as an Iowa fan, as somebody who has played athletics all my life, played it at the highest level, okay, who is not paid by, the Gazette or the Register or anything like that, they're missing out. And all I have is my honor, my opinions, my analysis, and that's really it. And that is the one thing I can guarantee you at all times. You may not agree with what I say, and that is fine. In fact, as a First Amendment absolutist, I encourage it. I have no issue whatsoever with it. But no matter what, you will know or should know that I will not shy away from giving my unadulterated, pure thoughts on what occurred. And I don't think that that's always the case. I really don't. I think there's a lot of people who provide very vanilla, on the surface commentary that toes the line. And I simply won't do that. And I found it kind of interesting. I always read some of the comments, and because that's why I created this channel, is to communicate with sports fans, Big Ten fans, Iowa Hawkeye fans in particular. And I found it interesting how people will use, and I'm not surprised by this. And by the way, I'm not saying boohoo to me. Okay. When you do something like this, you are going to be judged. I fully acknowledge that. Decisions have consequences. Actions have consequences, good or bad. But I did find it interesting all the same that, there were some opinions that have been highly favorable towards me. But as soon as my take about the, punt return and whether the officials got it right in the Iowa-Minnesota game, all of a sudden, the channel sucks. I'm not going to reach 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And, why am I doing this? And, like I said, it's par for the course. I fully understand that. But it is, for me, a little disappointing that some people have this illusion that we are always going to agree that you're going to be able to find somebody that you agree with 100% of the time, no matter what. And it's just not going to happen. The thing that I think people should be judged on, and that I look for when I watch content, is whether I agree with like the heart of what is trying to be projected and how it's being projected. And, you know, things like what I just said about being transparent, being honest, giving you my thoughts regardless of the circumstance, things like that. That is the thing to me that should be valued the most. So it was definitely very interesting to see that. I wasn't surprised to get some of the blowback that I did, but most of it was pretty positive. You know, I think most people were, even if they disagreed with me, were respectful, and that's fine. Now, going to the game, the Iowa versus Minnesota game, and I've had some time to decompress and think about it. My opinions have only changed slightly. The only thing that has changed slightly for me is, it's not that I think the call was wrong per se, because I don't. I think by the letter of the law, by the letter of how it's written, I can absolutely see the interpretation and how it ended up being ruled on the field. But after having time to take a step back, talk with buddies of mine who are also sports officials, collegiately and at the high school level, it was split as far as, was it the right call by the letter of the law? But as far as the context of the game, what they initially started to look at, for example, Cooper DeJean, aka Cooper DeJean, stepping out of bounds, which is originally what they went to check, and then ultimately checking something else entirely, also requiring indisputable evidence in order to overturn something as big and monumental as a touchdown. Now, myself included, but also a lot of my friends on this, that I showed this and asked for their take on it, it may have not been the right decision. Okay. And, you know, I don't really care to get into the tit for tat on, you know, whether he did it right here, whether he did it up here, and this and that. You know, I still believe that it's a thin margin, you know, when you kind of do this side thing. And, you know, ultimately it is up to the receiver. And we always tell players this in the game, that it is up to them to make it indistinguishable, like that there is no doubt what they're doing, either pointing with no other, you know, hand signals or anything, or waving it way up here and being done with it. Okay. Now, you know, but again, the context of the game and what they initially started to review and all of that good stuff, perhaps, you know, that's the one thing that I've changed on, that perhaps it wasn't the right call. And before, I wasn't so sure that Cooper wasn't fair catching, but or whether he was or was not. But now, after rewatching it multiple times, I think he was. What I think happened is he was pointing and he accidentally was waving off players. Okay. He wasn't doing a fair catch, but he, in the moment, forgot about needing to only be able to point and did the wave unconsciously. I think that that's what happened. Now, with that being said, and with me, like I said, I'm not saying that what I said after the game was wrong. I still think by the letter of the law, how it's written, that was an invalid fair catch or an invalid movement. But I have moved towards given the context of the game and the fact that they did not blow it dead immediately when it happened, and they allowed the play to continue, that ultimately the decision was wrong. Now, all of that being said, okay, all of that being said, I still believe that Iowa has nobody to blame but themselves, and I will not change my opinion on that. They have no one to blame but themselves for losing that football game. They were at home. They were in front of a sold-out crowd. The defense held Minnesota to 12 effing points. There is no reason. This is a Minnesota team that lost to Northwestern, or it was Northwestern Nebraska. Okay. Let me pull it up here. I have zero sympathy for that. And I have zero sympathy for the people, including Kirk Ferentz, who tried to shift some of the blame off of his offense towards the officials. And that, to me, is still the most unfortunate part. And I think that's why I came out so overwhelmingly against or pro the call that was made, because ultimately I absolutely believed, and still do, that the Iowa Hawkeyes should have won that game and had nobody to blame but themselves. And the sucky aspect of it is that a lot of fans diverted their focus from this trash, garbage, just plain rotten offense to the officials. And you guys know that your boy has said this multiple times, that eventually the dam was going to break, because we've seen it before. You know, the defense and the dam didn't even break on a day that the defense was amazing. And I have said in the past multiple times that if I were the opposing coach, I would totally be okay with playing the type of game that Iowa wanted to play. I would not take any shots against the Iowa defense. I would keep pounding it and pounding it and pounding it and methodically trying to wear out the defense, as opposed to taking multiple shots and being super creative and things like that. And I knew that eventually Iowa was going to run up against a team that was going to finally decide to do that and finally not be stubborn and be okay winning ugly against Iowa, because that's what Iowa forces you to do. If you want to beat them, you're going to have to beat them ugly, unless you're Penn State or Michigan or Ohio State. Yeah, they lost to Northwestern. So this is still on the Iowa Hawkeyes. It was an abysmal offensive performance. Let me see if I can pull this up here. This was a crazy stat. I could not believe it when I saw it. I posted it in my post-game show. Look at this. This was after their first drive. First quarter, punt, punt, punt. Second quarter, fumble, punt, touchdown. And this was in the second half. Second quarter drives, 13 plays, 60 yards, 1 punt, 1 turnover, 1 touchdown. Third quarter, punt, fumble, punt. Fourth quarter, punt, 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 interception. That is atrocious, guys. That's just awful. Okay. Brian Ferentz gets paid way too much money to have an offensive performance like that. So, you know, I'm at a loss. I was talking to a friend of mine that goes to the same gym, who's from that goes to the same gym as me, who's from the state of Iowa. And, you know, as I said in the post game, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if Iowa still finds a way to win 10 games, and I wouldn't be surprised if they lost 2 more games. And, the fans that are not allowing themselves their emotions to and their fandom to get the best of them are in a really tough spot, because on one hand, as a Iowa fan, you want Iowa to win, but you know that if they keep winning, Brian Ferentz is going to remain here. So that's my final thoughts on the Iowa game. Of course, they are in the bye week. They need to get healthy. It was a huge missed opportunity for Iowa to go into the bye week 7-1 and, really, really, really be in the driver's seat to be in the Big Ten championship game. Now, Wisconsin they control their own destiny. And, this would be, if Iowa does not make the Big Ten championship game this year, this season will be a failure, because in a season in which they beat Wisconsin, and they have the schedule that they do, and were favored in every game but 2 games. I mean, come on. So to wrap this up, guys, Big Ten Whip Around Show. Michigan, of course, smacked Michigan State. Ohio State beat Penn State. Really good game there. Ohio State, credit them for their victory. I thought Penn State was the best team in the Big Ten. I think, they showed that they're a really good team, but they aren't on the level of Ohio State. We'll see where Michigan is at when they play Ohio State. I think it's probably Ohio State and Michigan 1-2. Rutgers beat Indiana. Not really a surprise there. That's going to be probably the toughest remaining game on Iowa's schedule is Rutgers. Wisconsin eked out a victory over Illinois. Man, could Iowa have used that victory? Let's see who Wisconsin has left on their schedule. They have Ohio State. That'll likely be a loss. So, if they lose that game, Iowa still controls their destiny. But, aside from Ohio State, I don't really see. I mean, Wisconsin has a pretty favorable schedule as well. Aside from Ohio State, I don't really see another loss. They may lose at Minnesota. Nebraska may give them troubles. So we'll see. There's a lot of football left to be played. And that's it, guys. Nebraska eked out a victory over Northwestern. They are now 4-3. And that was that. Let's go ahead and take a look at the top 25 scores. Normally, I would do a much longer video, guys. It's just I'm still fairly exhausted from the game that was Iowa versus Minnesota. And, I know that at times this looks like an easy thing to do, but there's nothing harder than finding things to discuss and talk about when your team loses, when your favorite team, the reason why you do this, loses in terrible fashion. Duke lost to Florida State by 18 points. That's a good victory for Florida State, obviously. Washington eked out a victory over 1-6 Arizona State. They made that game much more difficult than it needed to be. Of course, that's classic college football. Oklahoma squeaked out a victory over UCF. That would have been the biggest upset of the season. Texas beat Houston. Oregon got a nice victory over Washington State. Virginia upset number 10th ranked North Carolina. Alabama beat Tennessee pretty handily. That's a great win for them. Ole Miss beat Auburn. Utah beat USC. Great victory for the Utah Utes. Wonder where Utah is going to go in this conference realignment situation. LSU smashed Army. Missouri beat South Carolina. My Air Force Falcons, at least my Air Force Falcons are still undefeated. Tulane beat North Texas. And of course, Iowa lost to Minnesota, and UCLA smashed Stanford after Stanford had the come from behind victory over Colorado. So just really quickly, my Big Ten power rankings. I'm gonna go Ohio State 1, Michigan 2, because I think Ohio State has the best win of the season. Penn State 3. I will keep it Iowa here. I think I'm going to move Rutgers into tier 2. You know, they are 6-2. That's a pretty good record. Um, you know, I'm hesitant to move them above Maryland. Um, you know, if we look at, let's see here. If we look at the Big Ten standings, you know, Maryland is 5-2. I'll probably move Rutgers in front of Maryland just because, you know, they have the 6 victories, but that was only because Maryland had a bye week. Here's the Big Ten West, excuse me. So Iowa, of course, holds the tiebreaker over Wisconsin. So I'll go ahead and put Rutgers in front of Maryland for now. But it's kind of like a 1A, 1B situation, to tell you the truth. So let me go ahead and get that on there. And things are really starting to take shape. I mean, I think tier 4 is still tier 4. Purdue had a bye week. Nebraska beat Northwestern, not a crazy victory. I think I am going to move Minnesota back ahead due to their victory over Iowa, back ahead of Nebraska. But, and I think a lot of people would probably want me to move Iowa behind Wisconsin or Rutgers. And I can see that. I can. But, Iowa ultimately did beat Wisconsin on the road. I think I feel good about my power rankings right now. It's really coming into shape. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Of course, like, comment, share, subscribe. You guys know the drill. Very curious what you guys have to say about the Iowa-Minnesota game, 2 days removed from the game. And listen, guys, I just want to say, last but not least, the comments, this is why I started doing this. I love talking with you guys. And even when, people don't agree with me all the time, I'm always okay with it. As long as it's a respectful conversation. That's the trouble with this is often because there's the screen here, it's easy for it to get into this non-respectful place. But as long as somebody disagrees respectfully, I'm totally okay with that. In hell, most of the time, even when they don't, it's no big deal. And I do realize that was a crazy play, and a lot of people, really love the Iowa Hawkeyes and feel strongly about them and about that play, and I understand it. But ultimately, with the background that I have, I just cannot take the Iowa coaching staff and this Iowa offense off the hook. So that is what that is. All right, guys, like, comment, share, subscribe. You guys know the drill. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy, Willow, and facts or feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you guys. See you guys in about a week and a half. Go Hawks. Bye-bye.